On today's episode, we have Adam Foster, aka SoberDad, here to share his story of overcoming drug addiction through the power of God and his why for building his page to the massive following he has. I'm Adam Vibe Gutton, and this is the Recovered on Purpose show. The black represents the darkness from which we came. The white represents the light in which we now live. And the red represents the passion it takes to live Recovered on Purpose. Today's episode is brought to you by Recovered on Purpose. Recovered on Purpose was founded with the mission of raising up an army of recovered addicts to tell their stories in powerful and impactful ways to free others suffering from the bondage of addiction, as well as tell our stories in the school system to deter the future generations from going down the path of addiction. If you want to become part of this movement or possibly be interviewed for this show, go to recoveredonpurpose.com/contact and tell me a little bit about yourself. You can also say hey in a message on this page and tell me about yourself and what you want to do. All right, guys, so Adam is a peer recovery coach, national addictions advocate, father in recovery, and founder of SoberDad. Adam quotes that he is just an average addict with an honest desire to never use again, with a mission to reach people who were just like me, broken and hurting. Adam, thank you so much for being here, brother.
Hey, man, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on Recovered on Purpose, man. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited to, a lot of these stories, we talk about the darkness, we talk about the steps, we talk about the fellowship, and we go into these different conversations about kind of what happened. So, and I know we actually have a mutual faith that I'm excited to get into, talking about God and about the Lord and what He did for us. But what we like to do at the beginning of this show is kind of relate to people. I know you had some struggles with addiction. So Adam, tell me about what's happened in your life to bring you to this point.
So I grew up in an alcoholic addict family, criminal background. My mom was heavily prescribed opioids my whole life. My uncles and aunts, and they all sold drugs. So it was just something that I fell into at an early age. And it just escalated, man. By the time that I was 18, I was on my way to prison the first time and spent the majority of my adult life locked up and just out there in the madness. Wow.
So in high school was kind of when you started your addiction. What was going on at that point? Was it just your mom had it, so you just started finding it around, or were there influences going on in your life, or what was going on at that point to make you start using?
So, well, I have to back up a little bit before high school because I dropped out whenever I was 16 to go to sell pills full time to help my mom make the rent. And so at age 11, my mom and dad split up. And on my dad's side of the family was pretty much mostly alcoholics and dealers. Whereas once my mom and dad split up and we moved out, went to my grandma's on my mom's side of the family was active hard drug users. So I was introduced to that lifestyle. My mom was already on her way to becoming an addict due to prescription opioids. And then she just kind of let the reins go on me a little bit. I think she kind of gave up on life just a little bit, and I pretty much got free range. I started smoking and drinking. And then eventually in middle school, she was full-blown chemically dependent, IV user, and the parent-child role kind of flip-flopped. I would stay up most of the nights making sure she didn't burn the house down from nodding out and dropping cigarettes. And my nights consisted of babysitting mom, and my days I would go to school and just sleep through all of my classes until I was old enough to drop out because I didn't want to get truancy involved. I thought that I was protecting her at the time and I was enabling her. Now I come to find out.
Wow, that's interesting. So did you, at that time when all that was going on in your home life, were you open about that with your peers or teachers or counselors or anybody?
Absolutely not. I had a counselor in school that I would go and sit with. And actually an awful lot. I tried to reach out to her this past year to thank her. Though I never did open up and tell her exactly what was going on. Mostly I just went and sat in her office and just hung out for like an hour every other day at school. Um, I never talked about my problems or anything that was going on to my peers, except for maybe a handful of kids who I knew personally through my mom's relations with other addicts that knew my story without me having to tell them. So,
Do you remember why it was that you were kind of hiding that from people, and why you weren't really opening up and saying, you know, this is going on at my house and I need help with this?
I was scared of getting my mom in trouble. Um, I was scared of getting pulled from my mom's home, and I didn't want to go back to my dad's house at the time. And I just felt this overwhelming feeling that I was the man of the house now, and I just needed to man up and take care of my mom.
Wow. And at that time, did you have any, like, did you think that you were like kind of alone, or did you ever have any male role models, mentors at that time that told you how life should be?
I had male role models, but they were all, you know, uh, addicted to the hard stuff, shooting morphine and methamphetamine, and all my male role models at that time were teaching me about the street life and how to hustle and how to sell drugs and teaching me how to weigh out grams and stuff like that.
Wow.
It was all criminal background.
Wow. Yeah, and I know that we kind of do the same thing with speaking in schools and talking to kids and stuff. And do you remember a speaker ever coming into your school and kind of relating to where you were at and telling you where that path goes? Do you remember any of those speakers ever coming to your school?
So nobody ever actually came into my school, but um, my second year of middle school, my behavior, because at this time, I'm already full blown chemically dependent. I'm snorting pills and smoking weed and drinking. And they had this program set up for problem kids like myself that they would separate us from the rest of the school. We'd all attend the same classes and have minimal interaction with the regular kids.
Wow.
And I got put into JROTC, Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, in my second seventh grade year. And you're not even technically allowed to take that class until you're in high school. But I think like a rare case or an extreme case where none of my other teachers really wanted anything to do with me, and it was just out of sight, out of mind. We'll just send him here and stuff like that. So never anybody coming into the school. But while I was in that program, I got sent. Me and 14 other kids got sent to a local penitentiary, Mount Olive Correctional Complex, and it was basically like the Scared Straight. So we were in there, and I had gotten high before I went to school that morning, so I was under the influence whenever I went to the prison. Um, Me and my best friend had gotten him high as well, and these inmates are trying to talk to us, and we're just laughing and not taking it seriously. And um, we got separated by the rest of the class and pulled off to the side. And I remember this inmate talking to me, and he's like, "Listen, man," he's like, "it's done too late for you, bro. You've already established a convict mentality." And he's like, "I'm telling you right now, it's funny today, but I promise you, in 10 years, you're going to be here." And I just laughed at that. And what was crazy is 10 years, not to the day, but to the year, 10 years later, I was incarcerated in that same penitentiary.
Whoa. I just got chills. I just got chills. So what do you think it is that wasn't getting through to you? What do you think it is that you were thinking at that time that these people weren't able to connect with you? Because obviously, Recovered on Purpose, the whole vision of this is for us as recovered addicts to deter the future generations from going down the path of addiction. What was it that you needed to hear at that moment, or what was it that you needed in your life to kind of alter the course of it?
So I just wasn't willing to open up or share to anybody that I knew couldn't relate to me, or the pro officers, the dare officers, teachers. Like I thought, whenever we come into recovery, we think that we are the exception, that nobody has it like us. Nobody has been through what we've been through. And I just wasn't willing to be transparent. But now coming into recovery, coming into the 12-step fellowships, having a solid support group and being transparent and other people's transparency, uh, ultimately delivered me. The Bible says we overcome by the word of our testimonies, and I have overcome by the word of somebody else's testimony. And that's a big reason why I started my outreach, because I'm like 90 days clean and sober in rehab, but I had not changed any of my behaviors, any of my thought patterns, because I had just enough. They talk about that, just a little bit of willingness. And I had just enough willingness to keep me there because I did want to not use, but I didn't want to change anything other than not using. And I remember going to an AA meeting and listening to this guy give his lead. And I've got a pretty crappy story, man, but there's a bunch of us out there who do. And I finally listened to somebody else's story from start to finish who had it a whole lot. I could totally relate. Our stories were almost parallel, but his was a lot worse than mine.
Wow.
And he had 3 years clean and sober, and he said that it was by trusting God and working a program. And that was I'll never forget that. His name was BJ, and he probably don't know the impact that he had on my life. But I still remember his speech to this day, and ever since that moment.
Wow. Wow. And that goes to show like the impact that we can have without even really knowing it. Like the page that you have, this show and different videos that we're doing, there's no telling the people that we're impacting. I actually had somebody message me today, and he said he's got 54 days clean and sober, which is amazing. And he was like, yeah, and it's my birthday. Wish him a happy birthday. And it's amazing that, people are reaching out, and that's why we do what we do. We're not doing this for clout or for obviously money. We're not doing it for any of that stuff. We're doing it to help people that are listening. And we don't even know where this message is going. We don't even know who's on the other side of that camera. We don't know the message that they're hearing in their heart, right? So what was it that where was your bottom at? Like what was going on at that time when you, what made you actually go into that rehab? What was going on there?
So my bottom lasted for about 9 months. The very, very bottom of my bottoms. Really about 18 months, because 9 months of that was incarcerated and 9 of it was out.
Yeah.
But I had hit this point in my madness that I had burnt every bridge, man. I was so held hostage by this thing. It didn't matter if you was, I've stole off my grandparents, my brother, my sister, my dad. I've robbed them multiple times, re-manipulate them into showing me some pity and just to do it all over again. And my brother was the last person to stop enabling me and totally. I just did a video with them the other day about addiction as a family disease, man. And I had caused so much problems indirectly, causing fights in their relationships with their spouses, to the point where I haven't been around for months, but because they're still having my back and loving me without boundaries, it's causing problems for them. And eventually they just had to write me off. And I had gone on a few months, almost 2 years without seeing my sister. And I showed up for Christmas Eve dinner, hadn't been home in like 90 days, several months. And I remember getting dropped off in 5 inches of snow. And as I'm walking up on the porch, my whole family's there. Like the parking lot's crowded. I know all my grandparents, my aunts and uncles and my nieces and nephews are there. And I'm thinking, I'm going to go in here and get a plate of food, get a shower, and possibly score some money. And my sister and my brother met me on the front porch and was like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "It's Christmas." And they're like, "Doesn't matter. You're not welcome here. Uh, Basically, you've given up your privilege to be a part of this family, and you've chosen drugs. You won't go get help, and we don't want you here." And so I take off walking, and I got nowhere to go. And then my dad comes and picks me up, and I'm thinking, okay, they're showing some pity for me. He's coming to bring me back to the house, and he didn't. He said, "Listen, he said I need somewhere to take you away, farther than this." And my sister was afraid that I was going to get mad and come back and break in the house later, and she wanted me far away, too far away to walk back. And so he took me to the next town over, and I got dropped off. And I've shared this multiple times, but I've never eaten out of a dumpster. I just wouldn't eat, but I was going across this shopping plaza, and I was on my way. I was so cold, bro. I was so cold, and I was going to climb in a dumpster to get out of the snow and the weather. And I passed a vehicle that I knew was easily hot wireable, and I jumped in it, knocked the ignition out, and I stole this vehicle, and I slept in it. And and the following night, Christmas Eve night and Christmas night, I stayed in this vehicle. And Christmas night, I got arrested and did another 9 months stay. Got out, um, had every intention of getting clean, man. Because once they cut me off and had showed me those hard boundaries, I was like, okay, it really jump started my brain to contemplating that this thing's serious. I can't stop. And for a long time, I would say that I didn't want to stop. When I knew that I couldn't, I just didn't want to admit weakness or defeat.
Right.
And so I got released, and I had every intention of staying clean. I wound up at my little brother's house with a needle in my arm, strung out, and on a 4-day meth binge. And I just came to this total desolate place of spiritual, mental, and physical bankruptness. And, I had accepted this limitation on my life that I was going to be a junkie and in and out of prison the rest of my life. And I had accepted that for multiple years leading up to this, and I was okay with it. But I wasn't okay with it no more. And I didn't think there was a way out. I thought suicide was my only way out. My uncle, he faced substance abuse issues, methamphetamine. He committed suicide. My little cousin committed suicide. My mom, she got taken to this disease. And at this time I lived in a really rural area, no recovery scene, no meetings, and it just wasn't heard of for anybody to make it out. And I was tired of going to prison, man, and I was tired of being strung out, and I thought suicide was the only way out.
Yeah. So we're going to take right there, we're going to take a quick break because that sounds like the bottom. And a lot of us can relate to where we think that suicide is the only option. So guys, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to see exactly how he got out of this and all of the steps that he's taken to build SoberDad and give all this hope to you guys. We'll see you in just a minute. All right, guys, today's episode is brought to you by Recovered on Purpose. Recovered on Purpose was founded with the mission of raising you up and getting your story out to deter the future generations from going down the path of addiction. Guys, if you want to get your story out, shoot me a message on this page, and let's talk about doing a live or getting you on this show. I'll see you in just a second. All right, guys, welcome back. So right before the break, we were talking about that super low that all of us understand, where we've gotten to a point where we've almost conceded to the fact that we're going to die a junkie. And then we get to this point where we don't want to be anymore, but we can't stop, right? And Adam found himself here, and he's thinking that suicide is his only option. So Adam, what happened then?
So I reached out to my sister, who I hadn't been allowed around, and I basically begged her to come help me to get me in somewhere. And she did, man. She dropped everything, came pick me up, took me back to my brother's house. Now, mind you, my brother and sister aren't addicts. They're like almost the only ones out of the whole family that aren't, other than my grandparents. And she took me back to my brother's, and she stayed on the phone like hours trying to get me a bed. And finally got a bed like 2 hours away from home in a faith-based program, 60 days inpatient, with 6 months of sober living afterwards. And at this time I was on parole still, and I wound up there. And then, so I had shared briefly earlier, I got into the program, and I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be in a Christian-based program. At this time, I had been studying a paganism religion in prison, but that willingness, right? I was willing to stay surrounded by these people because they were clean and sober, and eventually, man, I just hung out long enough until the miracle happened. You hear that all the time in the rooms and stuff, and that's.
Yeah. What was your experience with the miracle? So you did the steps in treatment, or what was going on in those 60 days?
Yeah, in the first 60 days, you're required to attend 7 meetings a week. 2 of those being church, 5 AA meetings. You're appointed a sponsor, an in-house sponsor, like it's peer-to-peer run a program. So the people that's farther along, they stay back to help the newcomers. And I had a sponsor help me through my first 5th step in that first 60 days, partnered with all those meetings and churches and Bible studies. And this is the part where it gets good, but
let's go.
So closed-minded. I'm even trying to convert people away from Christian. Yeah, I'm trying to convert people, bro. And God just kept on hitting me with God smacks, man. A pastor got put in my room. He was in rehab also, a pastor. Now I'm in rehab, and he's right in the bed next to me.
Wow.
I'm not going to lie, bro. For about 3 weeks, I kept him up till 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning every night, just questioning me. And I'm not going to lie, I was trying to back him into a corner and give him a question that he couldn't answer, or I was just questioning his belief in the realness of God, and I could never back him into that corner. And so that working on me, at the same time, I started praying. And I was like, okay, I heard BJ give his lead, and everybody's just loving on me, and these churches are coming in, and I'm having Bible studies, and just people are loving me radically. And even though my past, I share openly about how much of a scumbag I was, and they're like, "We love you."
Yeah.
And man, I started praying to God, and it felt like my prayers was hitting the ceiling for several weeks. I pray before my meals and stuff, and then we had a Bible study, and we talked about that verse in John where Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the light. Nobody can come to my Father but through me. Yeah. And we broke that verse down, and we talked about how Jesus was an ambassador, and how God doesn't want nothing to do with us, but Jesus does. He's like my he's my co-signer. I can't go straight to the plug, but he can take me, and I can go to the plug, Yeah. And so I started praying to Jesus and through Jesus. And dude, I had a crazy supernatural experience. I started talking to Jesus, and I was trying to latch on to salvation. I couldn't forgive myself. I was angry. I was bitter. I was resentful. I was a tough guy. And and I just couldn't get through past that barrier, and I couldn't understand salvation. And I spoke to Jesus like I'm speaking to you, man. I asked for him to look in my head and my heart, to help me understand salvation, help me to receive it and believe it, that to show it to me in a way that I could relate, because I couldn't relate to him dying 2,000 years ago. I'm in 2018. I need you to show me a way. And I promise, if you make yourself real to me, then you've got my best efforts going forward. And, I don't know why. I had such an experience. Some people's aren't as dramatic as mine, but dude, Jesus came to me in a vision. I'm in the middle of a Bible study. I'm surrounded by about 14 people. We're in a Bible study, and I had an outer body experience, and I'm in the streets. I'm it's dark. I'm in an alleyway, and I've got the pistol and dope in my hoodie pocket, and I know what I'm doing. And this black shadowy figure in blue jeans and a black hoodie with the hood pulled up and an empty black void face, nothing, like the Reaper, but like what I'm saying? Like, he runs up to me, he pulls a pistol, and he says, I know all the seeds of destruction you've sowed. I know all the chaos and all the people that you've harmed. I know everything wrong that you've done in your life, and you deserve to die, and I'm here to take your life. He pulls the pistol, points it at my chest, pulls the trigger. I see the muzzle flash like a camera going off. My vision's blurry, but it's coming back. My ears are ringing. This is how real this is. Yeah. My ears are ringing. I can't hear nothing. I'm clutching my chest, and I'm watching him disappear as he's running back down into the pitch black of the alleyway. And I'm clutching my chest, and I pull my hand away from my chest to look down for blood, and there's no blood. And I look through my fingers, and Jesus is laying on the ground with blood coming out of his chest. And like, this is so real, bro. And I crouch down, and I'm holding Jesus in my arm. His neck is right here, and I'm bawling. I'm hyperventilating. I'm crying. And he just told me that I had to turn away from the ways that I've been living, and that I'm forgiven, and I could have this new life in him. But I had to turn away from my old ways, and I had to follow him to the best of my ability. Mm-hmm. And I wake up, I come back to him on the couch, and everybody's up out of their seats surrounding me, like holding me. They said that I was like convulsing, and I'm hyperventilating, and I'm crying, and nobody knows what's going on. And then, man, after that, bro, like, I prayed specifically for things that I needed to work on: authority figure, police officers, anger, forgiveness. 2 days later, an ex-cop walked through the door. We all thought we was under investigation. We done thought they had an implant in the rehab. And I wouldn't talk to this guy. Now, we were taught in this fellowship to the newcomer's the most important person, and we got to love on them. We got to love them back to life, and we got to love them till they can love themselves. And I just didn't want no part of him. And so a few days goes by, and I'm praying, and I'm getting the impression that I need to go talk to this guy, and I need to go make him feel welcome. And I'm scared. I don't know if there's an indictment coming out, but I catch him on the back. I walk out back to smoke a cigarette, and I see him sitting on the bench, and it's just him. And that's a rare case to be in a part of the property without a handful of people. Yeah. And I hadn't never even let go of the doorknob, and I didn't want to go talk to him. I tried to turn around and go back, but I couldn't. I was frozen in step. And I sat there, and I had this battle inside, man, but finally I pushed through, and I was like, okay, man, I'm going. I shut the door, and I go talk to him, and this cop pours his heart. I said, listen, man, I can't give you no advice. I said, but if you want to talk, I'm here to listen. And in about 2 hours, he told me his entire life story, man. And although we had totally different walks of life, our feelings and emotions and other things that had happened to us were so parallel. And by the end of the 2 hours, we're both bawling, snotting, crying, and holding on to each other.
Wow, that's so good. That's so good. And I got chills when you told me about that experience with that vision with Jesus. And the thing is like, a lot of people that are in the recovery community don't necessarily believe in Jesus yet. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of people that actually think that we shouldn't talk about him so much, right? But as you've heard Adam talking about in his story, he began with a willingness, and then just started talking to Jesus as if he's just another person, right? and things started happening. Things started happening. He prayed for the belief, right? He prayed for this thing to be able to receive him, right? And then all these amazing things happened. And that's my experience as well when I pray to him, like about your story with the cop. Those kinds of things are everyday occurrences with Jesus. And I know some, like Richie had some incredible experiences after he got baptized in Florida. And he went and he like the next day he quit smoking cigarettes. He prayed to Jesus that he didn't want to smoke cigarettes anymore. That was my experience with it. And the reason why we talk about this, the reason why we share our testimonies and why we share our faith with you guys is so that you have the opportunity to talk to him as well, to have these experiences yourself. This isn't a high and mighty thing. This isn't a prideful thing. This isn't a look at us thing. This is like, we want everybody to be introduced to Jesus because this is what has happened for us, right? And as you can see with Adam's heart, it changed his heart. It changed his heart for others to where he was no longer holding on to the door to go back in. He wanted to go out and start serving people. So this is how you started SoberDad and how your page has grown to the status that it's at now. And why is it, you told me a little bit earlier about why it is that you hold this page, but why is it that you do what you do now?
Well, it started out first on my personal page.
Yeah.
And I felt this deep commitment, not this deep, I've made the commitment now, but I felt this deep, as I'm working these steps and I'm trying to make amends, my community back home, just personally, my small hometown, they were really underserved. Nobody had ever really heard of recovery, man. And I knew, for first couple times I tried to go home on my weekend passes, and I did this several times. You can call my old rehab and tell them every time I went home on a home pass, I was coming back with a carload of people.
Awesome.
And I just put myself in harm's way, man, and it was too hard to go back in that environment. And every time I experienced triggers and I wanted to use, but I fought through and I didn't. And it just became more easier to utilize social media to share my story and do my outreaches through that, specifically for the people that I used to be in the trenches with. And bro, it just snowballed, man. I started getting like my videos started reaching like Australia, all the United States, the UK. And somebody told me that I needed to start a page because I could reach more people with a page. And it's just, man, I remember that hopeless feeling, bro. I remember not having any hope or end in sight, and since then, man, my community they've opened up another person in recovery through Christ, opened up a community center. Like we started a movement back home, they're looking into getting some sober livings and all these services that they can provide. And it's been crazy because even the people that I didn't, even the people that I couldn't stand on the streets in the madness, we were arch enemies, couldn't stand you. If I see you, we're fighting on sight. And just, if you run this page, the criticism that we get, the criticism that we get for being attention seeking and all these negative things. But man, whenever you have people, like you said earlier, and this has happened on multiple occasions, somebody that I accused of couldn't stand, message you and say, listen, bro, I know we haven't talked in 2 years, but I want you to know, man, I watched one of your videos. I went immediately and got into rehab, and I just celebrated 6 months clean, bro. And I want to appreciate you. And it's like every time that you're facing this criticism and you're questioning your motives, and is this really working? Is this helping? And then something like that, bro, you can't stop, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And guys, again, I just want to reiterate that this is exactly why we do this. Right, for those types of messages, we fight through the negative stuff. People messaging me and telling me I should quit talking about Jesus or whatever it is. but those messages of people that are finding hope from what we're doing. And that's why Recovered on Purpose is all about you guys starting to do the same thing, starting to get your stories out, starting to get your messages out, starting to be loud about your recovery so people don't have to die in silence, right? So this is why we're doing this, Adam. I thank you so much for being here, brother. It's been a pleasure having you and hearing your story about where you were at, and then having your encounter with Jesus, and then all of this heart change that happened in you. And guys, we encourage you to do the same. Open up to God, open up to the Lord, and watch what He'll do in your life. Adam, thanks so much for being here, brother.
Thank you for having me, man.
All right, guys, we'll see you next time. The black represents the darkness from which we came. The white represents the light in which we now live. And the red represents the passion it takes to live recovered on purpose.